happy to, I want to say welcome to our Northampton Community Television audience once again. We've got Bruce Watson, who has an online news magazine called The Attic. He's going to be talking about the article In the Orchard of Dolores Huerta. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning, Rick.
All right, how are you today?
Pretty good. Up a little late, but I managed to make it here.
All right, fantastic. And it sounded really good this morning, so go ahead.
Okay. About a couple months ago, I decided to, before the documentary came out, I hope everyone has seen Dolores, I remembered my California days and the name, and so I decided to give a short shout-out for Dolores Huerta. This begins in Delano, I believe it's pronounced, Delano, California. Singing, marching, chanting Viva la Huelga, 2,000 farm workers picketed the grape fields of California in the fall of 1965. Some had worked those fields for decades. Others were children who knew they would do the same, and would earn 80 cents an hour unless someone took up their cause. Journalists focused on a single strike leader, Cesar Chavez, but right up front, speaking through a bullhorn, was his alter ego. Where he appeared calm and Christ-like, she seemed lit by fire. When he pondered, she acted. Her "yes, we can" often clashed with his "not yet." But those who knew Dolores Huerta knew she was second to no one in importance to the United Farm Workers. Fate and marriage gave her a surname that means, in Spanish, orchard. Yet Dolores Clara Fernandez Huerta never picked fruit. She took up la causa in the name of children. A lot of the children were children of farm workers, she recalled, teaching in the California Central Valley. And they would come to school with their raggedy shoes and little bones sticking out of their T-shirts. And I thought that was so wrong. And I thought I could do more by organizing farm workers than by trying to teach their hungry children. The mid-1950s saw the peak of the labor movement. Massive unions, Teamsters, United Auto Workers, earning labor the respect and wages that created a solid middle class. But the million who picked fruit remained as Woody Guthrie had found them. Is this the best way we can grow our good orchards? Is this the best way we can grow our good fruit? To fall like dry leaves and rot on your topsoil, be known by no name except deportee. In 1955, though she was a single mother with 7 children, Dolores Huerta left the classroom and went into the fields near Stockton, California. She met farm workers in their shacks and later went to Sacramento to lobby for a $1.25 wage and an end to the Bracero program that treated farm workers like crops, exported when the picking was done. In 1959, she met a kindred spirit. Cesar Chavez had heard of Huerta. She's a real firebrand, an organizer told him. She's smart, articulate, self-starting. Soon Chavez and Huerta were working together and fighting each other. Their relationship, a historian noted, was tempestuous from the start. Arguments turned into shouting matches. Huerta stormed out only to return the next day. Chavez had no love of illegals, whom he thought hurt the cause of legal immigrants. Huerta's orchard was big enough for both. The people themselves aren't illegal, she said. Their action of being in this country maybe is illegal. Huerta bristled at Chavez's self-importance. The guy sounded like a messiah, she said after one speech. But together the two formed the National Farm Workers Association in 1962. 3 years later, renamed United Farm Workers, the union joined striking Filipino grape pickers in Delano. With Chavez on podiums and Huerta behind a bullhorn, they expanded the strike into a nationwide boycott of California grapes. When Chavez, Huerta, and others walked 340 miles from Delano to Sacramento, Robert F. Kennedy joined the cause, befriending Huerta, who was with RFK that night when he thanked supporters and walked into the hotel kitchen. The boycott continued until 1970, when Huerta helped negotiate the first contract between growers and pickers. As strike followed strike, Huerta devised a motto for the UFW, "Si se puede," yes we can. Huerta's passion and tactical brilliance led to the California Agricultural Relations Act of 1975 that finally recognized the UFW. Yet Huerta was only recognized on a national stage after Barack Obama took the words right out of her mouth. She was very gracious when I told her I had stolen her slogan, "Yes we can," the president said in 2012 when awarding Huerta the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Knowing her, Obama said, "I'm pleased she let me off easy because Dolores does not play." Now 87, Huerta is still fighting, showing up at marches for minimum wage or in support of the DREAM Act. The documentary Dolores is now online, but her spirit lives on, not just in the Dolores Huerta Foundation, but in her children, all 11 of them, organizing, lobbying, proving that we can.
Wow, what a great story. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that My mic's sounding pretty horrible. I'm going to change mics. Hold on. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have to say, just from a personal standpoint, I grew up in Southern California. I remember in the 60s, and I remember the grape boycott, and I remember, you don't eat grapes, and table grapes it was. And the name Cesar Chavez, some speak at UMass years later. You didn't hear about Dolores Huerta then. I'm sure you did if you were in Delano, but she really was behind the scenes and really proved to be, as historians have dug out, every bit as influential as him. So I'm not sure what that says about him or her or, of course, our media. But she was really every bit as important as him. And I urge folks to see the documentary. I assume it's still on Netflix. It was on PBS for a while, came to theaters, and certainly must be available here and there. And so it's a very well done documentary about her and her influence.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, the fact that she was not as well known, it seems as though maybe it was just because she was a woman. I mean, but what do you think? Why do you think she just kind of disappeared until President Obama, brought attention to her?
Well, I also know. I think that's always a factor. There's no question about it. I also know that there are every great media upfront leader who sort of bears the burden and the mantle, so to speak, has people behind him, usually him, who are doing things that are every bit as important, but they don't want the spotlight. I can rattle off the name of a half dozen people behind King or with King, and some women, some men who just sort of chose to stay out of the spotlight. But of course, the media does prefer, and the society does seem to prefer. At that time, it's changing rapidly, I think. But in those days, especially, if we watch the last speech of Bobby Kennedy, the famous and tragically sad speech of at the Ambassador Hotel, there she is, right next to him, and so she was right there, but in all sorts of things. But the media didn't seem to notice it. The other thing is, Chavez was waging these massive hunger strikes, all sorts of things, and he was leading the march. He was out front, the 340-mile march. She was there too, but so he did step up. I don't think he in any way kept her down or out of the spotlight. But there's one other factor that should be known, and that is that she had 7 children. She did what women simply never do then. Left a teaching job to go out. She was in the field while she married, if I'm not mistaken, she married Chavez's brother. She was with him for many years. And so some of that was not, maybe they thought, well, maybe that.
Yeah, sure thing. Mentioned our local paper, the Hampshire Gazette and Valley Advocate, which is a kind of a free circular. They pulled together and they formed a union. So, on the local level, the unions, the importance of, pay and benefits and rights as workers, as we all know, can be trampled on by so many. But the, forming unions, I mean, this is, one of the major steps, but this is happening today too. It's not just that was a nice thing that happened. I mean, it's ever more happening thing that's so important.
Yeah, well, I wasn't just whistling Dixie when I was talking about what the importance of unions in creating the middle class. I've written a lot about the labor union in other strikes, the Bread and Roses strike, and others, and it is precisely because the unions are on their backs, and their union membership might have ticked up a bit in the last year or two, but it's been at historic lows, at least since the movement, and that is why the minimum wage is what it is, $7.25 an hour, and that's why the Fight for 15 movement is so important, and why some cities have gone to $15 an hour, and yet it just continues to be. Unions just continue to struggle and to have a bad name in many parts of the country.
Yeah, I know a number of the establishments in Northampton, restaurants, that come to mind have gone to $15 an hour. And what about Starbucks? Have they done that? Are they unionized, and have they gone that way with their wages? I don't know.
I'm not. So I think I would have come across my. I can't promise. I don't read the news as much as I used to, but it'd be surprising if they did. I know Walmart's been negotiating, and they were notorious union busters for years. There was some stirring of conscience there, but I can't say exactly what it was.
Yeah, and I see the average rate at let's see, Starbucks ranges from $8.42 to $16.42 an hour. I imagine. So they're not 15. No.
No, I often tell the story of just to puts it in a proper perspective. I think my first job, scooping ice cream at Baskin Robbins for $1.50 an hour. It was minimum wage, and if you do the math and do the inflation, that comes out to $10 an hour now. So that they're being ripped. So they should be earning a minimum wage should be earning at least $10 an hour. And of course, I was a teenager. And then there's another question of the price of ice cream, which has gone up something like 10 or 15 times since that, but that's a different story. But I can't imagine. There's a lot of very good things written, of course, everybody should know. Barbara Ehrenreich's book, Nickeled and Dimed, about trying to live on minimum wage, still is meaning. I'm sorry to say not much has changed since then. So that's one of the best works on unions and what the lack of unions will do.
Right. Now, I know that Amazon, I think, that was the one that raised its, raised its full-time, part-time, temporary, and seasonal employees to $15 an hour. But they're also, like Jeff Bezos, I think, also like somehow funds like white supremacy or something. I mean, there's really something kind of off about. Yeah.
I know he's the richest man in the world, but I can't. So and everybody's got their issues with Amazon, but that would be news to me. But anyway.
Yeah. So there are some companies out there that are doing that, and it's great to hear a story about that, and hopefully unions will make a comeback. It's so important.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And I know it's not exactly a Christmas story, folks, or holiday story, but it's important year round.
Yeah. So, what it was Amazon has been selling white supremacist merchandise. That's a fact. That's been documented.
Well, you can parse that many ways. Are they promoting it, or are they just another in their vast catalog? Are they still selling it once it was pointed out? Because it seems like they'd respond to that, but maybe not. Maybe it was too soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's a third party. It's like third party sellers must follow their guidelines, and if it's a hate group or whatever, it should be noted, and folks might choose otherwise when doing their shopping unless that changes. But anyway, great article, and thank you so much for calling in. So go to the attic. .space and check out Bruce's articles. What else is cooking there? What's new on the magazine?
Well, this week I wrote about St. Nicholas magazine, which was not a Christmas magazine, but it was called had a name like that, and it was the children's magazine for about 70 years, and it was just a wonderful magazine that really got childhood right. And one of the most influential things it did was it published children's work, and it was the first magazine to publish William Faulkner and Eudora Welty and Edna St. Vincent Millay and several other writers, Fitzgerald and others, who sent in things, who read it religiously and sent in things. So that's this week. And then next week I'm having a crossword, the first Attic crossword, to sort of wrap up the year with clues based on things I wrote about this year.
Nice. So go to theattic.space and read about St. Nicholas and more. Thanks so much, Bruce. You have a great week, and thanks for your contribution to my show.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
All right, man. Take care. So that's Bruce Watson. And again, you can go to theattic.space for a kinder, cooler America. So that is the Attic. And I've got a lot of stuff going on here. Why don't we take a look at this date in music history? The Drifters recorded This Magic Moment in 1959. How about that? And the BJs made their first appearance on Shindig in 64. In 66, Ready, Steady, Go was aired for the last time. In 72, John Lennon's film Imagine premiered on national TV. And in 1974, George Harrison released the holiday single Ding Dong, Ding Dong. And in 77, Cat Stevens converted to Islam. So we'll play a little bit of music from all those folks. Thank you, NCTV, for tuning in once again.